to have you here.
Okay, Abel, it's recording now and you are live on Facebook, so over to you.
Okay, so thank you so much, our panelists who have kept time, and we welcome all the attendees who have joined us for today's webinar. I want to welcome the AYAB members who have joined in as well, and who are the co-organizers of this webinar. I want to welcome John to take over from there.
Morning, everyone. Morning, everyone. My name is Basilika Joan Ladu, and I am from South Sudan. I am one of the representatives for AYAB, and I just, on behalf of AYAB, it's an honor to have each and every one of you join us in this webinar as we discuss food, fed, fiber, stockholders, perspectives, and combat desertification and drug in Egad region. So basically, this is a very important discussion for all of us today, and we are highly honored to have all of you join us for this discussion. So briefly, I just want to say AYAB is created by UNDRR and African Union to meaningfully engage youth in participation in DRR. So I want to welcome our Egad representatives from the AU from African Union. I want to welcome representatives from UNCCD. I want to welcome all the AYAB representatives as well. I want to welcome representatives from AFSTAG. I want to welcome all the representatives from AYICC, friends and everybody who has joined us for this webinar today. You are highly welcome, and we look forward to a very meaningful and engagement today. So I hand over to Abel to take us through the program for this webinar today. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much, Joan, for that. I didn't introduce myself at the beginning. My name is Abel Wilson Olekwa, and I'm coming from Uganda, and I'm part of the AYAB team that is organizing this, that has organized this webinar. We are excited to see dignitaries join us, but we are live on Facebook, so we are excited that we are sharing very useful information today with the rest of the world. So just we are going to have an opening session, and session one we are going to have opening statements from Dr. Ahmad, who is a technical advisor, disaster risk reduction, Egad. We're also going to have opening statements from Gathro Kai, who is a technical coordinator, DRR unit at African Union Commission. We're also going to have Dr. Thabo, who is going to give opening remarks also on behalf of Africa Science Technology Advisory Group, AFSTAG, and then we're going to have opening statement from the AYAB Chairperson, who is none other than Sandra Delali Keme, and then we are going to have the keynote address from Dr. Yuki. So right away, I want to welcome Dr. Ahmad to give the opening statements. You're most welcome, Doctor.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here, and all invited guests, my good friend and colleague, Mr. Gatkot Kai, a technical advisor to African Union Commission, Dr. Ndolvo Thabo, again, on behalf of the chair of African Science and Technology Advisory Group on Disaster Risk Reduction, a representative from USE, which I didn't capture the name, and again from UNCCD, Dr. Yuki Hori. Dear participants, ladies and gentlemen, let me start by congratulating the organizers of this important meeting, the AYAB group. On behalf of Egad, and particularly the Egad Climate Prediction and Application Center, and on my own behalf, I would like to express my appreciation for the organizers and my pleasure also to participate in this important meeting. Basically, I would like to pronounce my statement, which is not basically a written one. I would approach it in a more informal way. But overall, I would like to bring in the Egad organization and what it is doing and how it's important, particularly to this discussion. As you understand, this Egad, when it was established with double D, IGDD, which stands for Intergovernmental Authority on Desertification and Drought. So the focus is very clear. In 1986, when the heads of state established Egad, the focus was drought and the focus was desertification. It was afterwards that after 10 years, they come together to revitalize it again in 1996 to Intergovernmental Authority on Development, now to focus more on a wider topic of development, which is quite positive, as disasters need to be considered as a development agenda, not merely as a separate, a separate entity. So afterwards, I think Egad has been working on various topics, mainly in the headquarters. In Djibouti, for example, we have several divisions and departments and projects. And Egad also has 5 important specialized institutions, which I am now representing one of these. And if you look at, for example, in Addis, Egad has an institution which is working on peace and security, as well as conflict early warning system. In Nairobi, we have the Egad Climate Predictions and Application Center, where I am based in. And we also have Egad Center for Pastoral and Livestock Development, which is again based in Nairobi. So these centers are basically the ones steering the activities of Egad together and in very close consultation with our member states. Egad now has about more than 500 staffs and several departments, projects, programs. All that is working towards development in its full sense. However, the focus of today is basically on ICPAC and most importantly on the Egad program on disaster risk reduction. Colleagues, as you all understand, this region of Egad particularly is prone to various hazards, which are recurrently affecting our region, partly due to the high level of vulnerability and quite low coping capacity. But Egad never sits back on this frontier and has been working with various partners to address this challenge of disasters. The most important focus for now, particularly over the last, let's say, 5-10 years, was on the development of a disaster risk management strategy, both at regional as well as at country level, which was done quite significantly. Now we can say that all countries of Egad has their disaster risk management strategy, and almost all of them are aligned to the global Sendai framework, which is really one point. But strategies alone are not enough, as we all understand, and that needs to be translated into actions. That is now where Egad is working together with member states and partners, and we will be keeping on particularly putting that into action, putting those very good priorities of Sendai, very good targets and indicators of Sendai into practice. Towards that, there are several supports that Egad has been providing to member states, as well as different actors in the region. One of which is basically to support countries to have their own strategy, but also support countries in their important capacity gaps, be it in technology, particularly using this Earth observation and geospatial technologies in disaster risk reduction, or working on post-disaster needs assessment trainings, which we have done at regional and national level, or more specific trainings, for example, community-based trainings has been provided. So that is the level of efforts that we are putting on. I will come later on maybe on the details in that regard. But generally, as an opening remark, I think that much is enough for me. Thank you very much for your attention. And I rest my case there.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Ahmad. We are very glad and very honored to be with you today. And thank you so much for the welcoming remarks. Let's now hear from Kai from African Union Commission. Kai, you're most welcome.
Good morning, Abel. Good morning, the members of AYAB, colleague from UNCCD, and my friend and colleague, Dr. Ahmed Amdoun, from the Egad region. I'm very, very happy that AYAB is organizing this particular event with Egad. And I would like to commend the members of AYAB from Egad region for working with the regional bloc. This is where you are. That is where you're supposed to be. And I think that is, you need to capitalize in that connection with Dr. Ahmed and work very closely to deliver the disaster risk reduction agenda on the region. Egad region, given the exercises that we have just done recently, is one of the regions that is the most vulnerable on the continent. The risk index is increasing over the past 4 years, and the exposure to hazards is also increasing. We are recording several hazards, and they are increasing over time. The vulnerability index is also remaining almost the same, and is one of the worst in the region as well, on the continent. Again, Egad has one of the worst coping mechanisms on our continent as well. Now, given the current situation, the Lake Victoria is rising up, and this is creating flooding on the region. My own country, South Sudan, has been badly hit by floods, and this is going to, this is also forecasted to last longer until September. And we have seen many countries in the region also getting the same flash flooding. Rwanda and Kenya has received, one of the deadly effects of flooding. And actually, flooding killed more people than COVID-19 in the past months. So these are issues that really need attention. On the positive note, I think Egad is one of the regions that has the best climate center. I think the Egad Climate Center in Nairobi is one of the best in our continent, and is providing services beyond the Egad boundaries up to central countries in Central Africa, like Rwanda and Burundi. And we have one of the best disaster risk management unit in Egad that is well staffed by technical people. That is already a beginning. That is something that we can work on to support Egad to advance disaster risk management on the continent, and in particular on the region. Now with COVID-19 situation and the desert locust invasion, the food security outlook on this region is really worrying. Because we already have vulnerability that is affecting this region already. And now with COVID-19, we know the impact of COVID-19. The lockdown has prevented cross-border trade, and even in-country trade is not possible. And this will have significant impact on food production. So with this, I think there is a lot for the Africa Youth Advisory Board to engage with Egad. First of all, the Africa Youth Advisory Board was established by the African Union in 2019. This was after a long back and forth communication. We're happy the board has taken up, and we are very happy that you have organized the first webinar in your region. We hope to see that this kind of dialogue, this kind of connection between you and Egad continue to take place. We would like to see AYAB engaging the youth at grassroots in Egad region in particular to strengthen their capacities to work with youth organizations in Egad countries and to be able to implement the Egad strategy on disaster risk management at community level. Over the past 4 years, Egad has been doing a wonderful job at country level, helping countries to mainstream disaster risk reduction in education curriculum. In fact, Egad is our reference when it comes to continental issues on mainstreaming disaster risk management in education curriculum. But there is a lot of work that needs to be done. We need to ensure that we have a population that is able to understand the risk, that is able to respond when they are faced by risk in their own environment. And in this case, we need to ensure that our communities at grassroots are involved. And I can see a very clear role of AYAB, especially the members of AYAB that are coming from Egad region to work with Egad Disaster Risk Management Unit in Nairobi to be able to work with youth network and effectively implement the Egad Disaster Risk Management strategy. And of course, we need to ensure that multi-hazard early warning systems are functional. At the moment, we are working with Egad and SADC in particular to pilot a multi-hazard early warning programs that will ensure multi-sectoral response. And also that will ensure a clear division of role and responsibilities between continental, regional, national, and local actors. And until we have such mechanism in place, it becomes very easy to divide all our responsibilities. And already we also have mechanism in place, although they are not adequate on early warning. But I think having a comprehensive early warning system, multi-hazard early warning system, that take into account pandemic like this, that also take into account future hazards. In fact, we will have more COVID-19 like pandemic in the future. And we have also seen epidemics and pests are also increasing. In 2017, we had the armyworm, which was a key issue. It affected 32 countries in Africa, and it significantly affected the food security and the food production in 32 African countries. In 2019 and 2020 now, we have the desert locust invasion affecting countries, Eritrea, Djibouti, Somalia, Kenya, South Sudan, Uganda, and so on. So many countries in this region are also affected by desert locusts. Again, in 2020, we have COVID-19. We don't know what is holding for us really in 2021. So to address these issues, we need to have a multi-hazard approach to early warning and preparedness. With this, I would like to encourage Egad to utilize AYAB. AYAB is a mechanism that is available for us, and they have huge potential to increase advocacy efforts on our continent. And what we have been lacking is translation of political commitment into action. So working with AYAB members will make sure that we increase political awareness, we increase advocacy, and at the end that will translate into action on the ground, including increased allocation, budgetary allocation on disaster risk reduction and disaster risk management, which is currently lacking because this aspect is currently supported much more by external partners. We want African countries and communities to own these initiatives and be able to contribute from their domestic resources. With this, Abel, thank you very much, and I'm very glad to be part of this important dialogue. So I will be available for any questions until the end of this process. Thank you very much.
And thank you so much, Kai, for creating time for AYAB, and thank you so much for always believing in AYAB. Dr. Ahmad, I want to inform you and all the attendees and panelists that we are live on Facebook. And Dr. Ahmad, feel free to share a link of Egad initiatives, also Egad activities, maybe Egad opportunities. There are very many youth from that are listening to us on Facebook. So please feel free to share the link in the chat session, and our colleague who is coordinating Facebook and Zoom will be able to share the link the other side. At this juncture, I want to welcome Dr. Thambo to give the opening remarks on behalf of the chair of AFSTAG. Dr. Thambo, you're most welcome.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Let me first of all recognize, the presence of Kai, Dr. Ahmed, members of AYAB, and the UNCCD, and other participants. I'm so much grateful to be part of this discussion, and I'm here representing the AFSTAG chair. And on behalf of AFSTAG represents Africa Science and Technology Advisory Group. This is a group that was established by the AUC to provide scientific and technical support on DRR. And the other objective is for it to support the entrenchment of the role of science in addressing diverse hazards. And also let me congratulate AYAB for this initiative. And I would like to say that as we observe this day on drought and desertification, let us share our experiences. And as we share these experiences, it's critical that we learn and adjust. I think this is one of the issues that that has been lacking, given the slow onset of these hazards. Because if you look at drought and desertification, these are hazards that develop over time, and as they develop, they require us to also to be proactive and come up with initiatives that will help us to respond to these hazards effectively. Hence, I'm saying, as we engage today, let us also remember that it's important that we exploit the scientific as well as the technological space to increase the water harvesting aspects, as well as to promote land productivity to meet the ever increasing food consumption needs for the region. To highlight that as these hazards unfold, they're very much complex, as suggested, by other colleagues. But what is also critical to note is that following the prediction that Africa and Egad included are likely to experience an increased water insufficiency, as well as vulnerability to climate change. It's critical that we exploit the role of science, and as we do so, it's critical that we engage the most vulnerable groups and the youths in particular, so that we breed the context specific technologies to enhance consumption. At times we talk about science, but the other question that comes, who is consuming this knowledge? And are we coming up with technologies that communities are willing to take on board? What is the cost of these technologies? Do they have adequate support or capacity to embrace this technology? And I also want to to reiterate on the issue of predictability of these hazards. Today we talk about drought, which is a very, very predictable hazard. But how often do we embrace and acknowledge the indigenous knowledge system, which I believe most of our communities respond so much better. I'm not saying the other science, they don't recognize, but I believe that, indigenous knowledge systems normally speak to them. It speaks to their culture, it speaks to their way of doing things. So it's critical that, as we come up with technologies, let us remember that, they are traditional or indigenous ways that communities would prefer, and let us come up with hybrids that will embrace both the modern ways of doing things as well as the traditional. And as we discussed today, I also want us, maybe the region, to also recognize the role that universities and other research centers can play in driving the the mitigation, the development of locally adapted solutions. Universities and other research centers can actually play a significant role in driving, the DRR agenda in Egad. And I also would want to say that yes, we can talk about science, we can talk about vulnerable groups, but unless we become proactive and create our own safety nets, maybe in the form of having a fund that will be specifically focused on addressing a drought and other complex hazard. And it is my belief that, with us working together, we can deal with drought, we can address desertification, given that, these are slow onset and they give us much time, to respond. So let us also be proactive in our approach. Let's visit our way of doing things. How are we engaging, and how are we, our approaches relevant, to the context. With those few words, I thank you.
Dr. Thembo, thank you so much for those very interesting words. I want to share my personal experience that universities are doing very great work. They come up with very nice innovations. They are published in journals, and most of our people access information on social media and TVs. Would we be thinking through on how we can have our publications easily accessed by so many people, such that they can consume our recommendations and our findings? Okay, at this juncture, I want to inform the panelists and all the attendees that our Q&A session is open. Later on, when we have presentations, you'll feel free to use them. But even right now, if our panelists are saying something that is interesting, or you have something that you would wish to quickly probe, please, it is open and feel free to use it. At this juncture, I want to welcome the chairperson for AYAB to come and inform the team here more information about AYAB, and also how AYAB intends to move forward in the next 2-3 years. Our chairperson, you're most welcome.
Thank you so much, Abel. It's really an honor to be in this meeting, and I just want to thank all the participants who've made it to the meeting. So my name is Sandra Delali Keme, and I don't like to refer to myself as the chair, because the work of AYAB is really a teamwork. And I'm very, very happy that Africa has recognized the role that young people play and can play in the affairs of this continent. So as the previous panelists have said, AYAB was established to meaningfully engage young people in disaster risk reduction on the continent. The word is meaningful. And to engage someone meaningfully means to view them as an equal stakeholder, a valued and equal stakeholder. So I am very happy that important people like you, the panelists, and also our viewers have considered to organize this meeting, not just for young people, but together with young people. So I think AYAB is really very central to the development of Africa. So I'd like to thank Dr. Ahmed that you've recognized the potential of AYAB and have agreed to do this webinar with us. I also like to thank Kai for all his technical support and, in fact, 360 support to the functioning of AYAB. I would also like to thank Dr. Thabo for recognizing that it's not just science, but also that young people can contribute to disaster risk reduction on the continent. I'd also like to thank the UNCCD. They are just in my neighborhood. I actually live in Bonn, so I can just take the train and come and see you in your office for us to have a more in-depth discussion about how the UNCCD can work with young people. In fact, I'd like to commend UNCCD. They recently launched a consultant position to produce a global land outlook working paper and policy brief on youth and land restoration. I mean, when you see things like this, you recognize that stakeholders are increasingly becoming aware that young people should not be, things should not be done for young people, but done together with young people. And I think that's very crucial to ensure that young people are seen as valued and equal stakeholder in the development process. So I'm very excited about the presentations and look forward to both the technical, that is the older generation, and the younger generation presentation, so that we can have an intergenerational dialogue and contribute meaningfully to the development of Africa. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sandra. You have clearly defined the meaning of the word meaningful engagement, and thank you so much. At this juncture, I want to welcome our long-awaited keynote address speaker, that is Dr. Yuki. Dr. Yuki, you're most welcome.
Thank you very much, Abel. Greetings from Bonn, Germany to fellow participants, Abel, Mr. Wakwa, Dr. Ahmed, Dr. Kai, Dr. Tambo, and Ms. Dalika Marianne. My name is Yuki Hori. I'm heading the communications team in the United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification. I'm delighted to join you in this exciting webinar organized by AYAB. Today is Desertification and Drought Day. Do you know why it is today? The 17th June is the day that the UNCCD was adopted by the UN member countries in 1994 in Paris. There's a long history in the creation of this convention, but it was largely the Horn of Africa and Sahel drought from the 1970s onwards that moved the international community to create a convention to combat desertification. So the Egad region is at the heart of the UNCCD. My colleague Nora will speak about the UNCCD's regional perspective later. So here I will focus on the significance of Desertification and Drought Day. This year, the day is observed under the slogan, Food, Feed, and Fibre. The theme draws global attention to humanity's reliance on land for its well-being and health. The idea behind this theme is to change public attitude to the current production and consumption patterns that are the leading driver of desertification and land degradation, so that people become aware that they eat and wear comes from food and fiber, which actually comes from the land. And eventually, through the day's observance, we want to mobilize people to take action towards sustainable production and consumption for the land. Why does it matter? Because 2 billion hectares of previously productive land has already been degraded. It's a massive area about the size of India. the lives of close to half the people on the planet are affected by land degradation. As the global population continues to grow, there will be further demand on land to provide food, animal feed, and fiber for clothing. 99.7% of food we take comes from land. It includes land used for grazing and grain production to feed animals, which account for 80% of agricultural land in the world. In the meantime, 1/3 of all the food produced each year is lost or wasted, while 821 million people are undernourished. This is equivalent to 1.3 billion tons of food with a footprint of 1.4 billion hectares, close to 30% of the world agricultural land area. It is larger than Canada and India combined. So you see the degree of the problem. And through Desertification and Drought Day, we send a message to the world that land is a viable solution in delivering on the promises set out by the Sustainable Development Goals. Scaling land restoration and nature-based solutions bring multiple co-benefits. As we are battling COVID-19, we have more reason to come together to highlight that nature and land-based solutions offer a viable pathway towards saving lives and livelihoods, creating green jobs, supporting community resilience, maintaining the sustainable delivery of ecosystem services, and ultimately, build back better, stronger, and smarter as the pandemic eases. Making simple but positive changes in your lives can make immense impact for sustainable land management. For example, shift to move a balanced diet featuring plant-based foods. It will reduce demands for agricultural land and water. Shop for groceries at local farmers markets and seek out locally grown produce in a supermarket. It will support local economy and reduce the carbon footprint. You can reduce food waste by buying only what you need and repair, donate, swap clothes and avoid fast fashion. It will save water and prevent contamination of natural resources. On all these small changes I mentioned now, the involvement and buy-in from the young people are extremely important. So in passing, I was really happy to hear what Sandra said about the youth power empowerment and then participation of young people in the implementation of the convention's concerns matter, desertification and drought. So we will be happy to be connected with AYAB and discuss, keep continuing the dialogue to work together for the Egad region. And in this regard, that UNCCD has a very big youth caucus, and we're happy that if you could participate in it too, I can connect you to the person in charge, Sandra, later. So I very much value your interest in organizing this webinar in this regard also. And I thank again for AYAB for involving the UNCCD in this seminar. And lastly, let me mention that today, the UNCCD has many online contents for celebration of the day, from the ministerial panel to a cooking demonstration. So I will copy here in the chat space the link to the program here later. And please join us, but after this seminar. I wish you all a happy Desertification and Drought Day. Thank you very much, and back to you.
Oh, thank you so much, Dr. Yuki. Being the host, I felt like I should continue adding you more time for you to continue talking and talking and talking and talking. But thank you so much.
Thank you.
At this juncture, I want to give the powers to Joan to take us through the next session. Joan, you're most welcome.
Well, thank you everyone for these wonderful opening remarks. It is really informative, and I'm sure there are very many young people who are following this webinar right now that are really, really benefiting from this information. On behalf of AYAB, I am really grateful for all of you for taking up this time to engage meaningfully with the young people. So we appreciate all of you, and thank you so much for the opening remarks. Now, I just want us to quickly move to the next session, which is an introduction from Abstract. So I would give the floor now to Abstract to make some introductions. Thank you very much. Hello. Okay. I think we can move on, and then we'll come back to that. I'll now give the floor back to Abel to just make a bit of introduction about the youth presentation. So thank you so much.
Hello. Joanne, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Isn't who is supposed to be on schedule now? It's not Abel.
It's Abel.
Hello, Sandra.
Yes, Joanne is asking you to take over.
Okay. Thanks so much, Joan. Sorry, I had moved away a bit. At this juncture, I want to request Marianne to share the presentation for Dr. Ahmad. Marianne, I want to be sure that you are able to share the screen.
Yes, but maybe Dr. Ahmed could go first. If he, I don't know if he has a PowerPoint presentation or he has another presentation, and he can do.
Yes, I have a presentation, but I'm not able to share now. Maybe if you can allow me from that side, I can be able to share.
Okay, Doctor, let me allow you to share the screen. Doctor, can you try now?
Okay, I think it's visible now.
Yes.
Okay,
Just,
thank you very much.
Right.
Thank you. Let me go through a brief presentation just to give you what the IGPAC perspective is in terms of the topics at hand, particularly the disaster risk reduction bit of it. I will be talking about the region. I will give a perspective, particularly it's really important for AYAB and its members also to understand what Egad is all about, what we are working on, so that your interventions and your contributions would be more important. So I'll be talking about the region, IGPAC, and the program, the disaster risk management program. The state of the region, particularly as Kai was mentioning, we are dealing with triple or quadruple disasters at the same time currently. Then I will talk about the efforts that are being made in terms of mapping and monitoring the hazards in the region. And I will conclude finally by just provoking your thoughts in terms of what's really missing and final concluding remarks. as you all understand, this particular region of Egad is mainly very densely populated, more or less, particularly comparing it with other African regions. About 300,000, about 300 million people are living in this geographic coverage, which is about 5 million square kilometer, where the population, nearly 60% of the population lives in agriculture or related livelihoods. So their livelihood bases are agriculture, mostly the pastoral or smallholder farming, which by itself means a lot in terms of disaster risk reduction and disaster risk management. This region, due to several factors, faces recurrent hazards, as we all know. Particularly, many of them end up in devastating impacts to the region, partly because of high vulnerability and low coping capacity, which is again exacerbated by climate change, as we all know. This type of combination, having large number of population, which are usually less in terms of their capacities, coping capacities, as well as high in terms of vulnerabilities, is a recipe, particularly for high cost of disasters. They usually create havoc with those combinations. Let me talk about ICPAC. Particularly, I don't want to talk about Egad, which is a very huge institution now, but one of the specialized institutions is ICPAC, which is really important for everyone to understand and know, particularly those dealing with disasters, those dealing with climate. Given that most of our disasters are climate related, the importance of ICPAC or institutions like ICPAC is central for this region. ICPAC, just for your information, is one of the designated regional climate centers in Eastern Africa. And the center particularly have now quite a number of staff, particularly scientists working on climate modeling, on disaster risk reduction, on food security, Earth observation, several topics, but all of them are contributing towards a safer region. The main mandate of ICPAC is basically to provide climate monitoring and climate forecast services and applications. Most importantly here, the disaster risk reduction and disaster risk management bit of it, as well as the food security aspect. Let me talk now more specifically about the Egad disaster risk management program, which I believe will give you now a good understanding of how Egad is approaching this disaster risk reduction in the region. This program was established back in 2004 by a ministerial decree. There was also an institution which was established alongside this, which is called a TAC, Technical Advisory Committee members, which is basically the head or the senior staff of disaster management institutions from member countries. This program basically is designed, the approach that time was to improve on policy formulation and strategy development, particularly as it relates to disaster risk reduction. Capacity development, as we understand, that is a core or a core function of Egad, building the capacity of member countries and promoting DRM in all development planning processes. I think one of the biggest mistakes that many tend to do is to consider disaster risk management as just a silo, as a separate entity. Rather, it is basically one of the most important pillars of sustainable development. If our infrastructure, if our farming, if our pastoral communities are not disaster proof, or any program we are designing is not designed in such a way that we reduce the risks, whatever we build or whatever we invest is going to be lost in the sand or in the ocean. So that is very essential to understand, and this realization is already there in Egad. The Egad Regional Disaster Risk Management Strategy, which was endorsed by technical officers from member countries, awaiting a ministerial, again, endorsement soon, particularly calls for preparedness. It calls for also action in terms of response, reconstruction and recovery. Basically, it covers the whole cycle of disaster risk management, and it's only then we believe that we address this vicious cycle of disasters in the region. Again, one of the most important activity of this program is to support member states in terms of disaster risk management policy and strategy development. I think since last year, we have done 3 strategy supports to Sudan, South Sudan, and Somalia. So they have now a policy in terms of disaster risk reduction, which again, as I said, is one thing, but its implementation is also a big task ahead. Again, various capacity building trainings has been provided, including, as I said, on PDNA, on technology, on community-based disaster risk reduction. Several trainings have been provided, and those we believe are stumbling blocks towards addressing the regional gaps in terms of member states or member states institutions to be able to address these disasters as a development agenda rather than just an isolated program or project. This map you see in front of you is climate forecasts. It's a seasonal forecast of rainfall and temperature. This is very, very important function of Egad and ICPAC particularly. Every season, ICPAC issue a regional forecast of climate. As I said, given that our communities are like 60–70% base their livelihoods on agriculture, the importance of rain and the importance of forecast is really, it's very, very important. So that's what we do. We convene member states and several sectors, around 7 sectors from each of the member states, discuss and put a plan on how to mitigate the risks due to, for example, as you can see, high rainfalls in the border areas of Kenya, Ethiopia, Somalia, not Somalia, Uganda, and South Sudan. So this is one of the core functions. And in terms of disaster risk management, we particularly believe that climate is the center of, or a central driver of risks in this part of the world. For example, we have done a survey for the season March to May 2020. And this is what we found out. Member countries are grappling with the following pandemics during this period. As we know, COVID, which is now a common denominator for all. Desert locust, floods, other things like armyworms, landslides, droughts and epidemics, and tropical storms are reported in this region. You may be surprised that the region is experiencing too much rain, but still there are places which are experiencing drought. For people who are living in this region, you will never notice because it's everywhere rain, you feel. But in practice, in the indicators and thresholds, you can see that countries are providing food assistance to those areas which are currently being affected by drought. Let me quickly take you to the major hazards. I think this is given and everyone's attention is there, so I may not need to say much. But the COVID is again one of the disasters that is striking the region, creating panic. But Egad is working in several fronts, particularly in mobilizing resources. About $60 million is mobilized to support member states to be able to deal with the COVID and its impacts. That would be further cascaded to food security part of it, peace and security part of it, the climate and disaster risk management part of it. But generally, this is one of the most important disasters. Again, desert locust, as you know, it's again unprecedented level of invasion in the region. For Kenya, it's about, I think, they have a memory of some 60, 70 years. For some countries like Ethiopia, they have a memory of 25 years. They have never seen before that in between these. So it's damaging crops and pasture lands since last year. The problem with that is it directly affects the food and feed availability and creates shortages, which then contributes to other unintended consequences like conflicts for resources, so on and so forth. This is still ongoing. This map you see here in the right is the current forecast that ICPAC issued in terms of the movement of the desert locust, particularly areas in northern Kenya, eastern Ethiopia, central and western Somalia are now areas where the previous invasion landed and hatched their eggs. So we are experiencing now these small hoppers being, crawling until they fly. then the whole evolution continues like that. So the challenge is not, it is not a one-time event. They come, they lay egg, they continue and die, then the next generation will follow. It keeps on doing that. So we don't really know when this cycle is going to be broken. But the good thing, or the good news, is countries are really dealing with it very seriously. And in many countries of the Egad region, they really put a very important control measures. And that's why you see even a limited amount of coverage, which otherwise would be almost the whole region. In terms of floods, sorry for the sound. In terms of floods, again, this region experienced quite unprecedented level of flooding, which affected over actually 2 million now, even more million people in the region, killed over 500 people, and also a number of animals have been reported to have been killed by the floods. It has destroyed quite a number of housing units, roads, and other social services, including schools and hospitals, so on and so forth. So the most important thing maybe you can see from the video is a land use plan. You can see that in the floodplain, you can see several buildings being built there. So you can just say what is really going wrong. So those are the things that are really practical in our region that we need to address. It's not only one way, but it should be a comprehensive way. As you know, DRM is a multi-hazard, as it is also a multi-sectoral discipline. Now, these all are now contributing to food insecurity. I'm really sad to report to you today that in the context of all these compounded disasters and vulnerabilities, it's projected that up to 50 million at the highest end, people might be food insecure in the region. Currently, we have 25 million people which are already identified as food insecure according to the IPC measurements. This is quite a huge number. And as I said, it's basically because of a compounded vulnerabilities. In one way, we are dealing with floods, then still the desert locust is going on. Then here a COVID is coming in a very mega scale. So all those things are contributing to more vulnerabilities and to more insecurities, including food insecurity. So what is Egad doing, particularly in terms of mapping and monitoring these disasters, is fundamentally, you might have seen this map from 2013, which was basically an effort to try to identify areas prone to disasters. For example, you can see these are the 5 disasters that were identified by member states to be top disaster risks in the region. The drought, number 1, floods, number 2, Tesa flies, number 3, desert locust, here the one you see here, and finally seismic and volcanic activities are also very active in the region. But generally, the first 2, drought and floods, constitute 95% of the disasters in normal years. But there are such disasters like COVID, which really creates much wider and severe impacts in terms of the lives and livelihoods of communities. I think nobody can claim that he or she is not affected by COVID. As you can see, restrictions in movement, break in value chain, so on and so forth. So those are the common disasters which were mapped. But we realize that we can't keep on producing atlases in 2 years, 1 year, 5 years, and we shift into from mapping to monitoring now. So we have a monitoring system now, particularly as it relates to climate and drought. This is a drought monitoring system we have at ICPAC, which basically looks at different parameters and issue key messages. It's brilliant, but I'll tell you also the challenge we have in this one. In terms of floods also, it's not really a problem to tell in 3, 4, 5, 6 days that floods are coming. The challenge is what are the mechanisms there on the ground to try to mitigate and prevent from these hazards to affect communities or to affect people. That is very, very essential. This is again a flood monitoring system at ICPAC, which basically looks at extreme rainfall conditions in the region. Then we seasonally produce also number of people affected due to different disasters with member countries. As you can see, displacement is an issue here. Number of people killed by disasters, houses, infrastructure affected. All those infographics also are produced as part of informing policy and informing decision makers for a further strengthened action in terms of dealing with these recurrent disasters in the region. Now, the most important thing is this one now. I am not here basically to tell you what we have done, what we have achieved, but I want to provoke your thoughts as a youth group to try to come up with such standing challenges that we are having. For example, number one is there's a strong or a serious challenge in terms of linking early warning systems with early action, particularly at national and subnational levels. For example, last year, we know the cyclone is coming. In 2 days, it's going to hit the coastal areas of Somalia. The only thing that Egad do is inform the focal points in the country, and it's the mandate of the country now to communicate people who are at risk of this one. But the question is, do countries have this capacity? Do we have such a robust communication mechanism whereby they can reach the last mile? That is a challenge. It's not there in the region. The local administration needs to be linked. There must be a nephron of information from the national level to the local and village level. That is missing, and we need to work towards that. We realize that. We definitely would address this one stage by stage, but creativity, use innovation is really welcome also in this regard. Technology is very good. We have tried these mobile apps and the like, but how can we really reach villagers with those types of technologies? We are very active in Twitter, we are active in Facebook, we are active in our website, but how many people are we reaching? Particularly those people who are about to be killed or displaced by disasters. Number one is again, the foundation of this is basically to understand risk, which starts from risk profiles. As you understand, colleagues, risk is a factor of not only hazard, but also vulnerability, exposure, and capacity, particularly coping capacity. We really need to have a very good data in terms of a very good spatial and temporal resolution data in terms of profiling the major risks in the countries. Before the disaster strikes, we don't know whom it's going to hit. After the disaster strikes, we don't know who are affected because we don't have data on our hand in terms of people who are vulnerable to certain type of disaster. What is their, for example, elastic capacities? What is their coping capacities? All those issues, all those data are very, very fundamental. Particularly those participants who are working in data, this is a call for duty. The third one is again investment. Particularly as you understand, colleagues, Egad and the world is more focused, as we can see clearly in COVID. The world is more interested in response, willing to pay for response than preparedness. That is a challenge we are facing in Egad region also, like in the world. We have seen who have been affected by COVID and who are really better off, just based on their action and their orientation. Those countries who are really proactive and invest in preparedness, they really suffered less as compared to those countries who just waited and joked until it overtakes them. Then it was a crisis for most of the countries in the world, including those developed countries. So that is a very good lesson, particularly for disaster risk management practitioners. And that is what's happening in our region. We have to call for investments in DRR, as that is a cushion, that is an insurance for reducing the number of people who are going to be affected by disasters. Otherwise, if the current trend continues, we may not see positive outcomes out of these interventions. Only humanitarian response whenever disaster comes. That will never solve the problem, and the problem will sustain. the last one, but not the least, definitely is a coordination issue. As we, for example, at Egad even, as we grow and as our programs and projects grow, the biggest challenge is how to coordinate ourselves towards, gearing our attention towards what's important than what is just on the discourse, okay? What is the priority of the communities and member states as compared to what is the priorities of the, the layman or a person who is just interested in discussions and narratives and counter narratives and the like. Really, we are not addressing jointly those issues which need to be addressed jointly. So at Egad scale, at a continental scale, at a global scale, there must be coordination. You might have heard, for example, early warning from several institutions, okay? But if you ask simple question, are they coordinated? Are they working in tandem, at least with the global framework? You may be surprised. That is, again, a point which I would like to provoke your thoughts so that you can reflect and see how to address these issues. Finally, I think, let me conclude by saying a few words. Number one is a front-loading approach is a way forward, colleagues. We shouldn't have to wait until the disaster strikes and then we start response, okay? The front-loading approach basically addresses both the preparedness phase of it and the response part of it. That is the beauty of this one, the front-loading approach. But if you just wait, then we wait for surprise, as we have seen in COVID at a larger scale. Again, okay, mapping is very important, but we have to move away now from just producing atlases into a monitoring, a real-time or near real-time monitoring of hazards, which definitely yields fruits, okay, which really bear fruits rather than producing an atlas and sit comfortably, which would not inform us much in terms of what actions to take and what advisories to issue. Risk profiles, as I said, data. That is really very important, colleagues. As I said, before we don't know something, and even after we don't know something. So that is the real challenge at Egad level. I would like everyone to take this seriously. And when we speak of risk profiles, also don't get me wrong. It's not just a superficial risk profile that some claim to have been doing. It should be at national level, at local level, at subnational level, that the data has to be collected, analyzed, compiled in a systematic way, in a way that informs action, not the data that just is kept in the database. It should have to inform the nature of the hazard, should have to inform the level of exposure, types of vulnerabilities, in terms of space, time, everything, and also it should have to tell us about coping capacities. Who is going to cry first if such type of disaster happen? That needs to be again collected, compiled, organized at all levels. Particularly, Egad realizes that this is a very important priority, and we hope with other partners also, like Africa Union, we would be addressing those important gaps. The last one is successful implementation of such a robust strategies of Sendai framework, the African program of action, the Egad regional disaster risk management strategy, the national strategies. Implementing these strategies is a priority. We have to focus our attention towards implementing these strategies than replicating other ideas which never take us to our destination. This is what I would like to stress. And finally, the issue of investment is again quite important. As youth, we really need to have to change the perspective from more willingness to invest or response than preparedness. As you can read in literature, $1 you spend in preparedness will save you around $7 or even more dollars, which otherwise you are going to spend on response. So it is economical, it is wise, and it will take us to a sustainable development goal and the Agenda 2063 that Africa envisioned quite quickly. Then we just diverge our focuses and engage on various issues which never come to fruition. With that, I thank you very much for your attention, and If I take much of your time, I'm really sorry.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Ahmed. Your presentation was very interesting, though it took some time, but we were excited and learning new things time and again. Once again, our theme today is food, feed, and fiber. Dr. Ahmed, kindly make me a host again, such that I can make the next presenter be able to share the screen. Thank you so much for the presentation. Dr. Ahmed, I want to assure you that AYAB has a secretariat that is taking note of all these probing questions that have come in. And indeed, AYAB has a network of youth that are doing a lot of innovations, but have not been in touch or didn't have access to Egad. And the AYAB is going to have another discussion with you, because already all those areas you've told us to think through, AYAB has ideas on how we can implement them with also other youth networks. So thank you so much for the presentation. And I want to request the panelists, please check in the question and answer section. There are issues coming in there, and please feel free to respond to them. I want to request Marianne, take note of our Facebook team that is following us live. They have questions that they're also raising there, and please bring them to the attention of the panelists, and we get our session very interesting. At this juncture, I have the honor to welcome Dr. Benedict Mugambi to share with us the Earth observation data and application in combating drought and desertification. Dr. Ahmed raises a very pertinent issue on how do we actualize or get action from the data that we collect, the maps that we draw, and I'm sure our next presenter will have something to hint there. Dr. Benedict, you're most welcome.
Abel, sorry, we have to first have Mr. Edward Boama from Ghana, who will first speak about Digital Earth Africa, then move to Dr. Benedict. So if you could kindly make Mr. Boama the host so that can share his screen as well. Thank you.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. Dr. Edward, you're most welcome.
Thank you, Abel. Okay. Okay. Well, please, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see the screen.
Okay.
Kindly put in the presentation mode.
Is it okay?
All right.
Okay. Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Edward Boama from Ghana, and I'm going to do a presentation on the Digital Earth Africa. Then after that, I'll leave it to Dr. Benedict Mugambi to continue. So Digital Earth Africa platform actually translates Earth observation data into tailored information for understanding and addressing national development priorities, SDGs, and Agenda 2063 for Africa. So with this, because Digital Earth Africa is going to translate within the African scope, that's the African continent, it's going to actually allow everyone to track the changes across the African continent in an unprecedented details. Through this, it's going to actually help us to have insights of the range of issues that we are facing within the African continent, such as flooding, drought, soil, coastal erosions, and the rest. So why Digital Earth Africa? In May 2018, there was a program that was launched, that's the African Regional Data Cube. And African Regional Data Cube was based in 5 countries. Through the experience of these 5 countries, it was demonstrated that open data cube technology is actually of high value to our continent. So with the demand of Earth observation data, there was a need for Africa to get its own platform to manage the Earth observation data within the African scope. So for that, the Digital Africa program came up. And with it, it's a 3-year establishment program. After the establishment, it's going to be owned and led by Africa. The platform is actually fit for purpose. That means anybody can actually go there to use the system to compare data of years that are available. Also, advanced users can also conduct customs and complex analysis through the platform. I've been talking about data, that Digital Earth Africa is actually making available Earth observation data. Then what type of data are available on the Digital Earth Africa platform? Currently, we have the Sentinel-2A, the Sentinel data, which is up to the 6th of June 2020. So if you visit the platform, we have that type of data available. Also, we have the Landsat data also from Landsat 5 up to Landsat 20, the Landsat 8. All this data that is available meet the CEO's analysis ready data requirement. So everything is georeferenced, all the corrections has been done. All that you have to do with the data is to pick it up and make analysis out of it. So the image you see here is the satellite images that are available on the system. And on the right side is a sample of the Sentinel-2 image from Madagascar. Because Digital Earth Africa doesn't focus on only specific countries, but the whole of Africa, there are some of the derived products that have been developed. And one of the products that is currently available on the platform is the water observation from space. And it's provided at the continental level. What it means is that throughout the year, the water observation from space system translates satellite data into easy way to consume information on the availability of water presently, the location, and also the reoccurrence of water in Africa. So with this, because it's actually an historical data, it can actually help countries within the African continent to visualize, manage, and also understand the trend of how their water resources is being used over a period of time. So this is one of the products that is currently available on the Digital Earth Africa platform. I've actually been talking about the platform. How can one get access to the Digital Earth Africa platform? Right now, you can get access to the platform by maps.digitalearth.africa. At that session, it's easily accessed by anybody. Within that view, you can actually see the data that I've actually talked about, and even the product, that is the water observation from space, that is available for the whole continent, which can also actually help in monitoring flood and drought also. Most people also have their own systems, but they would like to consume data from the Digital Earth Africa platform. And we have APIs that is available also at ows.digitalearth.africa. We also have the Explorer, which gives an in-depth knowledge about the data sets and its metadata, which you can get it at the explorer.digitalearth.africa. And we also have the Sandbox. For advanced users, people like to develop their own thing because they know how to use the to code, like using languages as Python. Digital Earth also provide that platform for youth who knows how to use this platform to develop their own monitoring system within the scope of Africa. For more information, you can get it at the digitalearthafrica.org, whereby you can get enough information about what all this program is about and how it's going to actually benefit Africa, especially having a data set which is currently only focused on only Africa. And as time goes on, more data will be added so that you can actually get enough data to do monitoring over the whole continent at a go. One of the use cases that we've developed with the Digital Earth Africa is the use case for Lake Sulunga, which is in Tanzania. As it stands now, we have developed a script in the Digital Earth Africa to monitor the lake over a period of time. At this point, I would like to leave the stage for Dr. Benedict Mugambi to continue from here and tell us more about how the DEA platform helped in monitoring the Lake Sulunga over a period of time. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Edward. AYAB is coming up with the digital innovations, and we will link up with Digital Africa for for more support, but also how to work together moving forward. And we thank you so much for the presentation. Kindly make me a host again. Thank you so much, Marianne, for bringing the questions from the Facebook page. Kindly put them in the question and answer section for the panelists to respond to them. Benedict, you're most welcome. Please.
Yes. How are you, everybody? Do you hear me well?
Yeah. Yes, we can hear you, Benedict.
Yeah, my name is Benedict.
You can now share the screen.
Uh-huh. So, do you get it?
Yes.
And can I proceed?
Kindly proceed.
Of course, I'm sorry, my internet is not very sufficient, and perhaps maybe you may not hear me. You may not hear me well, but I will try as much as possible to make it clear. Yeah, I'm Benedict, and I'm working for National Bureau of Statistics, and I am very much pleased to join you today on the desertification drought day, and mostly the utilization of the Earth observation technology, as well as regional data cube infrastructure to produce environmental statistics that necessary to support the planning and decisions, and particularly engaging policymakers to go through the existing policy and review the policy accordingly. So this presentation is all about monitoring of Lake Silunga in Tanzania using Digital Earth Africa, as what we've heard from my colleague Edward. And thank you, Edward, for a good presentation. I'm just proceeding from where you left. And in fact, this presentation, of course, was prepared in collaboration between National Bureau of Statistics and Digital Earth Africa, as well as Global Partnership and Sustainable Development Data. To go back to the introduction of my presentation is that, of course, we know that Tanzania, like any other country in Africa, lack statistics in environmental degradation, as well as the country has been exposed to the extreme vulnerable weather events. And with other reasons, that's why the National Bureau of Statistics have decided to utilize fully the Earth observation technology, as well as African region data infrastructure, to analyze data on the issue related to agriculture, deforestation, water access, food security, urban growth, and water quality, and some other environmental statistics to serve the purpose. And for those, I think, of course, Edward elaborated very well about the RDC that has been formed by the Committee on Earth Observation Satellites in partnership with a group of Earth Observations, Amazon Web Service, Strathmore University in Kenya, and the Office of the Deputy President in Kenya, and the Global Partnership to Sustainable Development Data. And for us at National Bureau of Statistics, we are very much happy because it is the government institutions which has been it is the first institution to be transitioned into the Digital Earth of Africa, which provides over 34 years of analysis in ready data and associated with, as what we've had, Landsat 5, Landsat 7, Landsat 8, Eloise, and Sentinel-2, as what we've had already from my colleague, Edward. And again, for us, the National Bureau of Statistics, we are using the same technology for monitoring STD indicator number 661 on the change in the extent of water and its related ecosystem. So, as what I've said earlier, that we have used the Digital Earth Africa and African Region Data Cube to monitor Lake Rungai water extent. And of course, we had a support from the Digital Earth Africa, that was technical support, to conduct an analysis of the extent of the lake, of the water of the Lake Rungai. And the water observation from space tool were used to conduct analysis from February 2013 to December 2019, which is 6 years. And the analysis was run to compare two distinct time periods from 2014 to 2020. And of course, it is our expectation that the results that will come out from this analysis will be used in engaging policymakers and reporting SDGs. But we have gone further as National Bureau of Statistics that we do communicate with various audience. And there is people that do think that sometimes that people who have never been to school, or maybe people who have been attending a lower school, they are not supposed to use the statistics. But for us, it's quite different. That people who have never been to school, for example, those people who are just living close to the lake, we have printed the imagery supplied by Digital Earth Africa, and we have shared this imagery with the people, local people, and they really understood properly what we meant by saying about drought that may cause the diminishing of water of Lake Rungai. And they contributed a lot from those imagery. So we do communicate with various people depending upon how the education they have, so that they can use also the statistics, because they deserve to make use of statistics. So when I go back to my presentation again, here the analysis rate data was loaded with the water extent in the system, and the time series plot of the mean of the water was done, as well as maximum and the minimum water extent were plotted, as you can see here. And if you can at least see the graph there, it showed the time series analysis of water observed area from 2013 to 2019 using water observation from space as a tool. What do we depict from here? The graph shows that the lower water level was observed in 2015, and the high level water level was observed in early 2016, mid 17, and early 2018. Similarly, you can have a look at the very interesting imagery. And on the left side of me, it is images that were produced by 2015. And on the right side of me, the imagery that were produced by 2018. And of course, it shows the similar observation that we have seen from the previous slide that I've shown you, that the minimum water observed in September 2015 and the maximum water level observed in February 2018. And again, I have several now imagery, as you can see from my slides. And this imagery, of course, were created from Landsat 8, from 2013 and 2018. And of course, it shows different level of water based on those years that I've mentioned before. And again, this one I'll show it later because I have to spend more time on it. And again, you can have an overview of the lake using Sentinel-2 in the year 2020, but based in the May and June. But this one is basically on 30th May, 18th May, 28th May, and 2nd of June. But the difference is more or less the same, except if you can see the imagery that represents 13th May, there is a color like a white color there. And this one was a body which was not filled with water. And as time goes on, this color disappears, which means the lake is now filled with water completely. So to summarize my presentation, as what I've discussed with you before, is that through this monitoring Lake Rungai using Digital Earth Africa technology, it was observed that the lake experienced lower level of the water in September 2015 and high level of water in February 2018, and this was due to the increased precipitation in each year. Secondly, the ground validation was conducted in March 2019, and it revealed that the community has been encroaching on the bank of the lake as it shrinks, because people who are living there, they are cultivating rice. And once the water shrinks, the people is always moved toward the bank of the lake. And the third, National Bureau of Statistics, in collaboration with other government institutions, we formed a team, and we managed to demarcate the actual boundary of the lake using the GPS as well as the imagery produced by Digital Earth Africa. So for us as National Bureau of Statistics, we will use Digital Earth Africa to validate water policy as well as contribution toward Tanzania achieving SDGs. And finally, the environmental challenges in Tanzania require commitment from government institutions, non-government institutions, to collaborate and contribute in data collection, production, sharing, and innovation, which is in turn will enhance the availability of sustainable environment statistical for decision making. It doesn't cost more to deal with climate change, but it costs more to ignore it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Benedict, for the presentation. I request that you make me a host again.
Just for correction, please. I'm not a doctor anyway, and it was just a mistake to introduce me as a doctor. But I'm on the way to be a doctor. Yeah, very soon I'll become a doctor. But for now, I'm not yet a doctor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much for the presentation. We shall now move to our next panelist. Benedict, kindly make me a host.
Yes, sir. Excuse me.
Yes.
Come back again.
Kindly make me a host. Click on my name, Abel Wilson, and make me a host among the participants.
Okay. Unmute.
Yeah.
Benedict,
Hello?
you on Abel's name, there is more. Click on the more, then make host. Allow me to speak in Swahili. Nasema pale kwa Abel, kwa hilo jina lake, kuna hiyo tab ya more. Tafadhali click kwa hiyo more, halafu utaona hiyo prompt ya make host. Then you make him the host. Asante.
Do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear
Hello?
you. Hello, Benedict.
Yeah,
Asante sana Marianne. Lilian. Lilian.
Yes.
take note of the question and the answer section and try to link the question to the panelists and take note of those that have been responded to. Those that will not have been responded to, we shall respond to them towards the end of the last session. Otherwise, thank you so much for the panelists.
Hello, Benedict.
Yes.
I'm
Can
saying,
you come again? What do you want me to do?
on the participants tab,
Yes.
go to the panelists.
Yes.
Then you will see Abel. Click on his name.
Yes.
Then there is more. Click on the more. Then make him the host.
Click the more or the mute?
No, the more. Zaidi more.
Is it, I've already done it.
Then you can see the prompt to make Abel the host.
Okay.
So make him the host, please.
Miss Nora, you're most welcome. You're our next panelist. I request you to begin the presentation. Meanwhile, we are working on technology.
Okay, I also had a presentation, but I think I'll speak to it. So, good morning, everybody. Thank you to AYAB and to Egad for organizing this this meeting here today. I think, as had been mentioned by Dr. Ahmed, Egad is renowned for its progress and its steps that it has taken, despite all the challenges that we face in the different disasters in the region. Egad, I think, is steps ahead in terms of response, in terms of expertise that exists. So I had a presentation, but I think I'll just speak to it rather than in presenting it. So I think I'll begin from the very beginning, talking about land. Land is a source of life for all of us. Land covers about one third of the earth, and it's a source of food, providing about 99.7% of our food and calorie needs, as had been mentioned by Dr. Yuki Hori, who spoke earlier. But our land has been impacted by centuries of exploitation, which has led to degradation. Approximately 25% of the total land area in the world has been degraded. And the productive potential of land and land resources have been reduced over time. And this affects, in Africa, this affects about 319 million hectares across the continent, which is an average of about 50 tons of soil per year per hectare. This plays in against the background of increased drought, increased flooding, issues of cyclones and other extreme weather events that are becoming more frequent and more severe due to climate change. So in response, the land degradation neutrality was set up. So in 2015 marked the adoption of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, which ended up with the 17 Sustainable Development Goals that we all know, which are quite interlinked. SDG 15, which is life on land, is one of these SDGs, and work towards achieving this SDG on land contributes to several other sustainable development goals, some of which I'll mention would be poverty, food security, among others. So SDG 15 has a target 15.3, which I shall quote: by 2030, to combat desertification, restore degraded land and soil, including land affected by desertification, droughts, and floods, and strive to achieve a land degradation neutral world. So SDG 15.3 presents a paradigm shift to land management policy as well as practices. This approach, the LDN approach, recognizes the need to counterbalance the loss of productive land with the recovery of degraded land, as well as to avoid and reduce land degradation thanks to sustainable land management. During the UNCCD Conference of the Parties 13, a scientific conceptual framework for land degradation neutrality was endorsed. This conceptual framework guides countries in operationalizing and implementation of strategies that address land degradation and achieve LDN. I don't know if I can put up my presentation now, or I can just continue.
Nora, just continue.
Okay.
Just continue.
Okay. So,
why can't Nora share her presentation? Benedict is no longer the host.
Benedict
no
is
problem.
the host.
Sorry. It's okay. I can just continue. So linking all of these back to the food, feed, and fiber that Dr. Yuki had already spoken about. How does all of this link to our desertification and drought day with the theme of food, feed, and fiber? So we know that land degradation is intrinsically linked to human production and consumption patterns. This is because what we eat, what we feed our animals, and what we wear, how we live, alter a lot of our land and our land resources. So land is converted to meet these needs, but also it drives a lot of habitat loss. It causes destruction of our environments, and it eventually threatens our livelihoods while allowing the spread of diseases. I shall skip the statistics, I think, that had been mentioned by Dr. Yuri, and just move on to the links with the zoonotic diseases. So the direct link between land degradation and the spread of disease has been highlighted. And during this period of the COVID-19, I think has been the moment when we have seen the importance and the impact of zoonotic diseases driven by land degradation. With COVID-19, we realized just how much we depend on nature and how much we depend on land and its resources, and that these resources are not limitless. Our responses to COVID-19 cannot therefore be divorced from our discussion on land and how we manage it. To build back better from COVID-19, we must create a new social contract for nature. This means actively making choices to avoid waste, actively making choices to avoid future land degradation, and contributing to reduced carbon emissions, as well as reversing biodiversity loss. So production and consumption of food, feed, and fiber also contributes to climate change, with about a quarter of greenhouse gases coming from agriculture, forestry, among other land uses. Our ever-growing consumption combined with increased population focus on our needs for simple changes in our diets and our behaviors. And this could mean improving our agricultural practices. It could mean cutting on our food waste. It could be buying more from local markets. Our focus here is both individual as well as our combined actions to make a difference. So speaking more about the Egad region and the UNCCD work with the Egad region. So Egad, as has been mentioned, particularly by Dr. is identified as an affected region experiencing desertification and drought, and the importance of this region, even for the UNCCD, was also highlighted by my colleague earlier. The region supports over 300 million people, 70% of which are actually youth. 60 to 70% of these depend on agriculture, another land resource, for their livelihoods. So land is often a source of livelihood and a fallback asset for a lot of our people. However, the region is faced with numerous challenges. These are climate change, these are increasing frequency and severity of droughts and floods, as well as the recent plague of locusts that was experienced in the region. So addressing all these issues requires us to be able to address issues such as land tenure, climate change resilience, vulnerability. All of these play a role in responding to these challenges. But I'd like to highlight the importance of the youth at the heart of these responses, because youth are a key partner and a key agent of change, not just an affected group. And I think in terms of policy and in terms of actions, we need to change our narrative of thinking of youth as people to be supported, how youth can support the processes.
Hello, Nora.
Yes?
Yes, please, you can share your presentation now. I think it's really nice to have pictorial representation as well. It helps for people to retain.
I can share the presentation because my talk is probably almost over. I didn't have that much more left, so I can share it afterwards if it's okay.
Okay.
Right. So speaking about Egad and the UNCCD, so Egad is the sub-regional intergovernmental organization. Amongst other attributes, helps and supports the Eastern African countries to implement the UNCCD Convention. It has developed national action plans. It has also created a sub-regional action plan to mobilize and coordinate partnerships for the implementation of the convention, the UNCCD. We are now developing a regional land degradation neutrality transformative project and program. Discussions that have begun on this, and we're looking forward to having this materialize in the next coming months, over the coming months. So we also recognize, as I mentioned earlier, Egad for its expertise and experience in disaster management, supporting member countries to navigate, mitigate, and respond to various disasters, including droughts. Other functions that they play in support of the convention have been capacity building as well. So I had a table up to show the different initiatives that are implemented in Africa, the Africa region, as well as in Egad. But I'll speak through them. So one of them is the LDN, the Land Degradation Neutrality Target Setting Program. So this was a program that has gained traction around the world. We have about 123 countries around the world that have set land degradation neutrality targets, and these include 52 out of the 54 African countries. Very commendable, I must say. Africa is representing over 50% of the LDN targets that have been set globally. And out of these, 7 of the 8 Egad countries have set their targets. Thereafter, once countries develop their targets, they then can request for support from the UNCCD for something called the Transformative Projects and Programs. The global mechanism of the UNCCD assists country parties to develop early stage projects or programs that are further developed into full-fledged projects with the support of implementation entities. And these target a different range of funding sources, such as the GEF, the GCF, the Adaptation Fund, or whichever is selected by the country. So 4 out of the 8 Egad countries have requested the support for the transformative projects and programs. Other initiatives running in Africa, as you all know, are the Great Green Wall, which runs across all the way from the very west of the Sahel all the way to the eastern parts of Africa, which includes actually some of the Egad countries. About 4 out of the 8 Egad countries are members of the Great Green Wall Initiative. We also have the Drought Initiative. So UNCCD is supporting countries to develop national drought plans. More than 70 countries have been engaged in this process, and so far 2 countries in the Egad region have been able to do this, which is Sudan and Ethiopia. Other initiatives in the region are the 3S initiatives that focus on youth and jobs, and implemented in 14 countries, and many others. But I must mention that the UNCCD is not actually an implementing agency. The UNCCD is a convention. It's a secretariat that holds meetings every 2 years, bringing together member parties to make decisions on issues related to desertification and drought. So these are a range of issues from droughts, land tenure, suns and dust storms, and other topics that affect the countries across the world. We work with partner organizations and regional bodies such as Egad to implement actions based on the recommendations made during this conference of the parties held every 2 years. So from the last COP14 that was held in India, we had a decision on drought where the member parties decided to create an intergovernmental working group on drought, which brings together about 30 experts as well as government representatives from across the world to address questions on what countries can do to make progress and have better, robust actions with regards to drought. We have many tools, strategies, and frameworks that have been created over time by various agencies, various institutions around the world. But how can this be translated to action? These are the questions that this intergovernmental working group are going to be addressing. Translating this for uptake by different countries, different regions, because everybody has a different context and different experience of drought and other disasters. So in conclusion, I'd like to say that I think time is ripe for us to be able to turn to sustainable land production as well as restoration, and adapting sustainable production and consumption. From this, we can be able to effectively create and sustain jobs, enterprises, livelihoods, particularly for the women, for the youth, as well as other vulnerable groups. We can deliver goods and services such as food and medicine and contribute to human health, nutrition, resilience. We can reduce the transmission of zoonotic diseases such as COVID-19 that is currently impacting the world. And we can provide social and economic safety nets, particularly for the most vulnerable in the community, including our youth. So the challenge to each of us as individuals, as organizations, and as countries is to rethink and redefine our relationship with nature. What can be referred, or what has been referred to in the recent past as the new contract, new social contract with nature. Ultimately, we need to remember that we need nature more than nature needs us. And in this COVID-19 and post-COVID-19 times, we need to prioritize nature-based solutions, which have the potential to support lives and livelihoods, to create and sustain green jobs, to maintain sustainable delivery of ecosystem services, and ultimately to build back better, stronger, and better. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Nora. We are very grateful for the presentation. And I request that you continue looking at the chat section that will be having some questions coming in. At this juncture, I want to welcome Mr. Wambia from the Africa Youth Initiative on Climate Change to share with us the youth initiatives. Thank you so much, and you're most welcome.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much. I hope you can all hear me.
Yes,
I don't know whether
you
will enable me to share my screen.
Yes, you've been made a host now, so you can share the screen.
Okay, thank you. So just a moment, please. So can you all see my screen?
Yes, we can be able to see the screen.
Okay. So once again, my name is Fantas Wambia Odero. I am a member of the African Youth Initiative on Climate Change, the Kenyan chapter, which also by extension is one of the constituents of the AYAB. The story of drought and desertification has been very well painted by the presentation by Dr. Ahmed. And as you see, most regions in the Egad, most countries rather, in the Egad regions are what we call the arid and semi-arid lands, so the ASALs. And they have been facing quite frequent extreme weather events, which includes droughts and floods and all that. And this has been exacerbated by the climate change. And in Kenya in particular, one of the major natural hazards that we face are droughts and floods, which have devastating effect on livelihoods and cause hunger, diseases, and even death. And as you know, most of the Egad region countries have their livelihood based on agriculture, and these agricultural activities are often affected and hugely impacted when disaster strikes. And one of those agricultural activities in the Egad regions is pastoralism. In Kenya alone, these ASAL regions account to about 70% of the herds that are held nationally. And in terms of value, this feed production, this is about 70 billion Kenyan shillings. And so it's needless to say that pastoralists are in the forefront in facing the impact of climate change and droughts. And so the Egad, our representative from Egad, Dr. Ahmed, clearly pointed out the steps that are being done in the region, and we really commend even the specialized agencies that have been put in place, and also just guiding the member countries to be able to put in place their plans. And so, as you probably are aware, the Egad has the drought disaster resilience and sustainable initiative strategy, which Kenya has been able to adopt and to tailor-make for its own implementation, and come up with a document that they call the Ending Disaster Emergencies Strategy. And to implement this, there is an institutional framework to it. There's an institution called the National Drought and Management Authority that's been set up with the sole mandate to be able to coordinate activities that pertain to drought emergencies and to be able to cover risk. And they get most of their financial resources from the National Treasury, and there are also partners who put into that kitty. There is what we call the European Union Drought Contingency Fund, as well as some safety net, hunger safety net programs that are in place. And they do this in a multi-stakeholder format, in which there is a steering group that comprises all the major stakeholders, including the civil society, the media, the public officers, and the two different levels of government, which is the national government and even the county government. So as probably past speakers have reinforced the importance of having to be very proactive as opposed to always waiting for to respond when disaster has already struck. There is a huge opportunity in investing in risks. And Kenya has taken a big step in that, and by having a strategy that to finance disaster, that they call the Disaster Risk Financing Strategy, that will be ongoing from 2018 up to 2022. And in this strategy, there can be a planning way ahead of time and even budgetary allocations to be able to curb drought emergencies. And one of the key outcome of this has been what we call the Kenya Livestock Insurance Program. And this is an index-based insurance program in which households can buy a policy, so to speak, to cover their livestock against disaster, which for this context would be the drought. So then it means that since this is an index-based insurance, payments will be triggered off when there is less foliage, and this is supplied by satellite images and as well as some indicators that show that when there is less scarcity of foliage, then it automatically triggers. And then the livelihoods which households who bought the policy can be able to get money to enable them buy fodder for their crops, for their livestock rather, and even get water to be able to be able to cushion the effects, the devastating effects of the drought. And the other core function that also the National Drought Management Authority does is to help the government in coordinating the payouts from the Africa Risk Capacity. Probably some of you have heard about the African Risk Capacity, which is a specialized agency of the African Union that helps countries to do what they call risk pooling, to be able to have like an insurance for their risks. And when there's trigger, then they're able to get payouts that will enable them cushion their populations so that things don't get so dire. And so the CLIP, which is the Kenya Livestock Insurance Program, has been very successful. And just to show a bit of figures, there have been over 18,000 people who have benefited from it, and over 90,000 livelihood units that have been compensated. And in terms of the money that has been going to that, it's about 700 million Kenyan shillings since its inception. And as we said that when we are combating risk, or rather when we are doing disaster risk management, all of us need to play a very big role. And CLIP has shown that indeed all the actors can come to the table to join in hands, because in the implementation of this, there was the World Bank, who was technical partners, there was the ILRI, with the International Livestock Research Institute, which helps with the satellite imaging and the images. And then there's also now the private sector, who are the insurance companies that sort of underwrite the households to be able to provide policy. And so this shows a very good mix of how actors can come in and play together, and to be able to manage these risks. And this has been very beneficial, because we've seen that the level of distresses to the livelihoods when drought strikes has been greatly reduced. And in most households where they have probably very little livestock units, you find that when disaster strikes, when drought strikes, then the coping mechanisms are also affected, because probably money that could have been gone into buying food now goes into trying to look for food for the livestock and all that. And there's a ripple effect in that. So then this insurance program has been able to really cushion that. And so my organization is part of a network that is championing this climate risk insurance as an alternative way of investing in risk beforehand. And one of the major roles that we are playing is that we want to ensure that all the initiatives that are put into place are pegged on a human rights approach, because often there could be interventions, even in managing risk, that can infringe on the human rights of the population that we are trying to help.
Mr. Wambia?
Yes?
Could you plan to summarize?
Okay, actually I am on the tail end of the presentation. So then we have 4 major pillars in which we are pegging our approach, and we are championing the inclusion. And this includes having the vulnerable populations and active participation of the youth and even the women constituents, empowerment, capacity building. And we also want accountability, because often when there is no transparency, then most of these programs that are set into place do not come to fruition. And finally, we also champion for the respect of the existing structures. So in a nutshell, this is what we've been able to do. And as a way forward, we're looking into ways in which this can also be replicated in other hazards like the floods, which were not covered in this phase, and any other hazard that may present itself. So thank you very much for your attention, and back to you, Egad.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Wambia. It's exciting to learn of what African Youth Initiative on Climate Change is doing, and we are very grateful for the presentation. At this juncture, I also want to request the panelists to put attention in the chat section. There are some questions that are coming in the chat section, but also I want to request our Marianne to look at the Facebook page such that we don't leave anyone behind. May I now request Mr. Jonah Mwangi to come and to give us a presentation. Just once again, our theme for today is food, feed, fiber. I welcome you, Mr. Jonah.
Abel, it's Mr. Jonah, Mr. Samuel Bakari.
On the program, I think if he's not in, we can have it Mr. Samuel Bakari presenting the youth and the enterprise.
Okay. Thanks. We'll shortly share my screen. Yeah, but I see that I'm not the host, so probably I can't be able to share.
I just activated it. Sorry.
Yes,
So
thanks.
please share your screen now. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Yeah. Great. Let me see. Great. My name is Samuel Bakari, and I'm the chair, Friends of Kinango Plateau. This is a really local conservation group and initiative that is one of the good examples that we can share to the world in terms of taking charge in environmental conservation and avoiding the desertification. Of course, I am speaking on behalf of many people. We have more than 1,000 members, and we have a lot of input from different partners. So I'm not just speaking on behalf of myself. Probably, I think it would be good to start with looking at what we are doing as Friends of Kinango. We are really focused at the Kinango Plateau, which originally was a grassland, as you can see in this photo, and the importance of the grasslands are really enormous. Just touching a little of them is the provision of services like the aquifer recharge. Of course, the grasslands are very, very critical in terms of holding rainwater and then releasing it slowly into the system. They are thereby very critical in terms of controlling flooding and other things like soil erosion. Again, it's also very important in terms of grazing, so very critical role in terms of food. And then also, it offers home to a big biodiversity that is very critical in terms of pollination. And of course, finally, but not the last one, recreation opportunities. And looking at the statistics at the moment, there is over 200 billion hectares of land that was previously productive, but now is very degraded. And it's estimated by probably 2030, food production will require an additional 300 million hectares of land. And of course, with these statistics, then it's very clear that change of land use is the biggest driver of desertification and land degradation. And we are looking at the Kinangop grasslands. You can see it just next to the 104 with the highlighted lead. This is the deep green. These grasslands, we are looking at them because they are very critical habitat for some very specialized biodiversity. One of these is the sharp slonclaw, which is an endangered species that is also endemic to Kenya. That's our main flagship species, which we look at. And the green areas are the sites that these species is said to occur. So we're talking about the grasslands and the biodiversity there in general. But the one thing that has happened actually, looking at the Kinangop grasslands alone, we have seen a really big decline in terms of the extent of the grasslands, but also the quality. And a lot of changes occurred around 1990s, and we associate these changes with the political happenings in Kenya. There was a lot of problems with the support facilities, the government support facilities. So a lot of farmers who are doing traditional livestock farming were forced to move to crop production because livestock farming was no longer, sort of productive or, profitable for them. And what we have now from what we had before is what you can see, really pockets of, very changed land use. We see, development, we see conversion of land. And of course, this brings a lot of challenges, which includes increased sustainability, increased vulnerability to climate change, and of course, desertification and loss of biodiversity. And I mean, these are really challenges that we have to face. And what we are doing as Friends of Kinangop is to look at how can we do as a group. And what we have done is, we have joined together mostly as youth. One, to reduce the loss of grass cover, and two, to improve the grass cover, and sort of understand what are the dynamics. So in terms of ecological research, and then look at how do we integrate the traditional and cultural life into resilience. And this is contributing to the conservation of these species that I've talked about, the sharp strong crow that is globally endangered. So we are looking at the opportunities that are presented, in the regional landscape, and we are looking at the market opportunity. And one of the main factors that we have as an opportunity is the sheep farming in Kinangop, which is really, it's a cold area. So we have really most of the farmers doing sheep farming. And what we realized is most of the grasslands that are actually remaining are where farmers are doing sheep layering. So as we were talking about awareness and talking to farmers, look, these birds are important, the grasslands are important. The main questions that we got from the farmer was, well, we don't see the link between birds. We don't know what are the importances of the grasslands. So the opportunity that we looked at and saw was the sheep farming, because then that provides a table with the farmers in terms of discussion and looking at the critical things for the farmers. And the sheep industry is big. We have so many number of sheep, over 18.5 million sheep in Kenya, and over 2 million tons of wool produced every year and then exported as well. So we're looking at how can we as youths take up this wool and build opportunity for ourselves and for the farmers to continue rearing the sheep. And what we do is, the farmers are very critical in layering the sheep, but also maintaining the grasslands. And then we take it through the wool that we get from the farmers through a big process. We start with shearing, cleaning, and cutting this wool, and then we spin it into fibers, and then weave these fibers into very useful products like the mats, like the shawls. We have really quite a big variety of products. And of course, we realize the importance of the farmers. So we really often sit down with the farmers and look at the challenges that the farmers do have. And most of the challenges actually are very towards management. And yeah.
Mr. Bakari?
Yes.
You have 1 minute to conclude. Thank you.
Okay. Yes. So we have really a very critical linkage between ourselves as youth, the farmers, and the biodiversity. And this is how the process works, looking at the identification of the farmers, supporting farmers, and then the wool processing. So we are touching across the food, the feed, and the fiber very, very well. And we are creating opportunities for over 30 farmers and directly helping conserve over 2,000 acres of grassland, and then creating opportunity for over 20 youths. And this is very, very critical. Other praying laws are the opportunities of tourism and how other people can come into play, and this is creating more opportunities even for the youths. And looking forward, we are working towards increasing our capital and creating more jobs and extending the coverage of the grasslands that we are helping to conserve, and of course creating additional opportunities for farmers. We have a bigger network of partners, like I said to start with. And so many thanks for your attention. You can have our contact details. You can see our website and see what we are doing. And so many thanks for your attention.
Very interesting and very enterprising. Thank you so much, Mr. Bakari. We look forward to interacting with you more. At this juncture, let's have our last panelist on board. Mr. Jonah, you're most welcome.
Thank you very much. I think you can make me a host for me to be able to share the screen.
Sandra, can you do that? Right.
Yes, I see he's already the host now. Thanks.
Yes,
Oh, okay.
I just did. Yeah.
Oh,
Okay,
hello,
So
everyone.
Mr. Jonah is now the host.
Okay, thank you very much. Just a minute, I need to share the screen. So I think the screen is on, right?
Yes, it is. So you can put it in presenting mode and start your presentation.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm John Amongi. I'm this presenting Green Network Textile. Green Network Textile is a for profit, for impact social venture that is dealing with production of eco fiber from network plant. To begin with, we have a project dumped sustainable sting project. More and more people in the world are becoming environmental and social conscious about what they wear, how it's made, and where it's made, and the impact of what they are wearing is having on environmental and both social life. Unfortunately, there is low supply of sustainable fibers amid this increasing demand. I'll not go to the statistic about how fashion industry and the textile industry is contributing in desertification because it will consume a lot of time. But basically, population is on an increase. And coming from Africa, as the population is increasing, the demand for clothing is increasing. Unfortunately, due to desertification and land is not increasing, we are importing more and more second-hand clothing from Europe and from America, which is killing fast fashion. And what we are importing is more of carbon footprints, in which most of these clothes are thrown away, maybe after a year or so. The other alternative is we are converting more land to do cotton farming, which is not sustainable at all due to the amount of water that is required, the amount of land of arable land that is required for us to be able to produce cotton cloth. Coming from Africa, we as a company decided to act on this. What do? Green Nettle Textile produces eco fiber from stinging nettle. This is a herb that grows almost in every part of Africa, and the advantage is stinging nettle grows on steep slopes. These are lands which cannot be used for farming. If people try to farm on steep slopes, there is a lot of soil erosion, liver pollution, and it is not even sustainable economically. So us as Green Nettle Textile engages farmers with steep slopes. We are more working in Mount Kenya region, allowed castor forestation. We have allowed 300 farmers who are engaged with us. We engage them to grow stinging nettle, which grows naturally in this area. And for every 3 months, we buy nettle stock, which we use for eco fiber extraction. Nettle shoots and leaves are directed for use in cosmetic industry and alternative food. This means like the whole plant is used. We use stock, but also leaves and shoots are also used in other activities, commercial activities. For us, the method of extracting the fiber, we use biological letting. This is more of traditional fermentation, such that we use less water, and what we get as extract from the water, we get fibers, but farmers are able to get fermented plant extract, which they use in their farming, in that fermented plant extract can be used as fertilizer, biofertilizer, and for pest control. The method of fiber extraction or getting eco fiber from natural plants that grows naturally, and once they're harvested, they are able to grow on themselves without requiring water or fertilizer, is that we contribute a lot in environmental conservation. Remember, nettle grows naturally, and if we are able to ensure that nettle is able to be established where it grows naturally, then we are contributing a lot in environmental conservation. We don't use water, there's no pesticide, the method of extraction is biological, then there are a lot of environmental conservation in reducing the carbon footprint and the amount of chemicals that is used in overall fiber production. Biodiversity promotion, in that growing nettle, where it grows naturally, it is documented that stinging nettle hosts hundreds of species of both insects and small invertebrates, and engaging farmers who have steep slopes where you cannot be able to do any other commercial activity. There are a lot of livelihood improvement, and through biological letting, you don't as a company own the production process. It is done at farmers' point, meaning that apart from farmers being the producers of the raw material, they are also like employees of the companies because they are the one who do pre-processing. This has come with its own challenges because in Africa, production of fiber, leave alone even producing sustainable or eco fibers, production of fiber is something which is not well developed industry because the industries are dying. Now, producing sustainable fibers in an innovative way, there are a lot of challenges. There's slower product development because technology is not there. For us as a company being a startup, for us to move a step, we need to benchmark in Europe and Asia, which leads to slow product development. And sustainable fashion is super expensive because the process of us making a sustainable fiber is not the same as a conventional way of making a nylon fiber, which you can do it in a lab. It takes time, it takes a lot of efforts, it takes taking risk. So the cost of making apparel is more expensive than a conventional ways. However, we must produce fiber which are within the planetary boundary, and these are the checklists that need to be checked by people who are in fiber or textile industry. Is it environmental friendly? How much water is being used? How much wastewater is being produced in the process of us producing fiber? How are we managing the waste that we are getting? How much energy is used? How much greenhouse gases are emitted in the process of producing the fiber, in process of producing the crop to produce the fiber? And to us, we have been able to cover almost all these checklists in a positive way. Something else which is very much critical to us is a social checklist. Is this socially sustainable? How much do we engage the farmer? Are there slavery in that? And you can imagine you are buying a single t-shirt or a shirt in Kenya or in Africa at 100 bob. But this one t-shirt is produced, there is a farmer who did farming, meaning that for that $1 that you spent, there was a lot of slavery, either in production, either in processing, either in the production or in transportation. And these are the things that we need to check. Is the fiber socially sustainable? And the checklist that we as a company go through are as follows: farmers engagement, recruitment, safety, which to us we have been able to reach. So far, we have been able to go through research, to do research and to do the pilot projects. And on the screen are the products which we have been able to make, starting with the fiber, hand woven and hand knitted drawers, which have been already been sold in global market. The advantage is, with you having natural fiber, we can't be able to breed with others. I'm very much impressed by what friends of Kinagops are doing, because what is on the screen is a bread of wool and nettle fiber. Necessarily, we don't need like cotton or nylon for us to produce zincs, which we use in our homes. This one is a combination of nettle and banana, proving that sustainable fiber can be done from what we consider as waste in our current daily activities. This mall of data which can be gotten about the contribution of fashion industry in desertification.
Excuse me, Jonah.
Yeah.
Can you summarize, please?
So, okay, I'm almost through. Thank you. So about what do we mean with sustainable fashion? It is either how it's produced, how it is managed after it is produced, and where it goes. And we can make fashion more sustainable, not only by how we make clothes, either from eco-fiber or from anything else, but we can be able to be fair and ethical in terms of how much we sell, how much we pay those people who make it. We can change or adapt how we use. We can let or lease what we need to wear and only adapt what we need and not bulk buy what we won't be able to use. For sustainability, it's all about brands and customers. For brands, that may be beyond us, but you as a person need to be sustainable. And the most important thing is to ask yourself, who made what you are wearing? What impact was it? What impact did it have on the world or to the environment for you to get the clothes that you are wearing? We have made to this point thanks to the partnership of H&M Foundation, Shopline, and Chivas Venture. And this shows that we need more partnership to bring sustainable fashion to reality, more so to use who are working in rural setup. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Jonah, for that presentation. Thank you so much. I think we've come to the end of our webinar, and I just want to mention that DRR has a resource profile for drought and floods. So in case if for more information, we can go and follow that profile. And I just want to say, as all of us are celebrating today, I want us to know that it is all our responsibility to protect the future generation from desertification and drought. So it's a great honor for AYAB to appreciate all of you for taking up this time to join us for this webinar. We highly appreciate you. We highly appreciate you for your time. We highly appreciate you for all the information you've given. And this webinar was live on Facebook. So there are so many questions and so many comments that were made, and I hope you also were able to look at it and follow up on it. So we have come to the end of our webinar. I just want to thank each of you for joining us. Thank you so much and have a lovely day.
Joan, before we finish, I'd like to extend the invitation on the rest of the activities happening today on the Desertification and Drought Day. There's a host of activities happening. Please visit the UCCD website where there's a table of activities ranging from discussions by chefs to a high-level panel discussion that's going to be moderated by our Executive Secretary, Mr. Ibrahim Tiao. We'd like to welcome everybody to engage in all the events happening through the day. Karibuni, you're very welcome. Bye.
One more thing, I just, on behalf of AYAB, we also want to invite you on our, we have our media pages, we have a Facebook page, and then we have a Twitter chats every Saturday where we pick a topic and then we have discussion on the topic. So we also invite you to follow us on our media pages so we can just keep on date on whatever thing that the youth are actively participating in. Thank you so much.
Marianne?
Hello, Sandra. Hello, Sandra, can you hear me?
Yes, I'm just wondering, do we ask the panelists who are still around to answer some of the questions that have been raised in the question and answer section, or we take the questions and then bilaterally reach out to the panelists to answer the questions at a later date through email?
Thank you, Sandra. I think if we have for ourselves, we have a bit of time to spare, but I don't know much about our panelists. So if they have some, let's say the next 10 minutes, they can take questions from our audience. It would be great, but that is if they have time.
Okay, I'll please kindly ask the panelists for just some 7 to 10 minutes just to at least answer one question or two. Then we can bilaterally send the rest of the questions, because I saw some really interesting questions, and then bilaterally the panelists can answer them. But generally, I think we should just select one or two just for our audience, because they've stayed until the end of this hoping that their questions would be answered. So Lillian, can you select one question? You've had an overview of the questions that our panelists who are still on the line can answer before we close the session finally.
Okay, Sandra. The first question is, how do you analyze the impact of drought on Lake Sulunga? This is a question from Frederick from Kenya. Goes to Dr. Benedict. Hello?
Yes, Dr. Benedict is not online. So I think you have to pick a question either from that has been directed to Edward Buama or Jonah Mwangi or Fantus Wabia or Dr. Tarek or Sabo. You have to choose one of these people that a question has been directed to.
Okay. Another one is, what are the other initiatives of DRR during this time of pandemic? This question goes to Dr. Hamd.
Dr. Who?
Sorry, Dr. Ahmed is Dr. Ahmed left at 12 because he had to go for another meeting. But if there are DRR initiatives from other panelists that are happening in their own institutions, maybe they have something they can share about.
Maybe I can just speak a little bit about this COVID response during the pandemic. So we, as UNCC, don't necessarily have anything specific to DRR, but as organizations across the world, we are we're adapting our programs to be able to better respond to the situation currently, as well as the post-COVID situation. To be able to help countries to address issues that are now especially linked to livelihoods, which are the things that are affected the most currently. So there's a lot of adjustments that are happening around the world, not necessarily directly working in DRR, but in all of our programming, as well as the work that we're doing across our organizations.
Thank you very much, Nora. Perhaps, Marianne, you can give the concluding remarks, and then we'll send the rest of the questions bilaterally to the panelists, and some of them are not here, and then the questions of our attendees will be answered. So Marianne, over to you.
Thank you very much, Sandra. And I want to take this opportunity to first thank our panelists who we've taken 30 minutes extra of their time and just showing up here for the youth and for the drought and desertification instruments of combating it. We are very, very grateful that you have been able to share with us your perspectives and also your actions on the ground, whether in micro scale or mega scale. I think each and every one of us has had an opportunity to learn something new. And also to our interactive audience, a lot of good feedback from Dr. Kiringai Kamau from Gordon, from Savita Sihag from India, and also everyone who joined us from Facebook all the way. We had participation from Nicaragua, from Argentina, from the Philippines, from Libya. And we just want to say thank you. This one has exceeded our expectations. And from AYAB DRR, Egad and East African region, we want to say thank you, and thank you very much once again. And we'll be sharing the recording of this webinar and also a follow-up report on this. Thank you very much. Back to you, Sandra.
Thank you so much, Marianne. I think you've said it all. So enjoy the rest of the day, everyone. Bye.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.